In April 2026, the diplomatic atmosphere in Islamabad, Pakistan became unusually intense as the world's attention quietly shifted toward one critical event. Behind secure government buildings and tightly controlled diplomatic zones, delegations from the United States and Iran gathered for direct peace talks. These were not routine discussions. They represented one of the most sensitive attempts in recent years to reduce hostility between two nations that had remained at odds for decades. The goal was ambitious: turn a fragile ceasefire into a stable, long-term peace agreement that could prevent further escalation and bring stability to a tense region. From the very beginning, the global community watched these developments with unusual focus. Governments, analysts, and international organizations quietly followed every update, hoping this rare diplomatic opening would succeed. The expectation was not just regional peace, but global stability. Many countries understood that tensions between the United States and Iran often have wider consequences, influencing oil markets, regional security, and international relations. Because of this, the Islamabad talks were seen as more than a bilateral meeting. They were viewed as a potential turning point in global diplomacy. Pakistan's decision to host the talks added even greater significance. As a country maintaining relations with both sides, Pakistan positioned itself as a neutral mediator capable of bringing rivals together. The leadership of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif played a central role in organizing the process. Pakistan carefully structured the talks to ensure privacy, stability, and fairness. Separate preliminary meetings were held first, allowing both sides to express concerns without pressure. This approach was widely appreciated internationally, as it created an environment where dialogue could begin without immediate confrontation. The American delegation, led by J.D. Vance, arrived with a focus on long-term security guarantees and regional stability frameworks. The Iranian delegation, including Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and Abbas Araghchi, emphasized sovereignty, respect, and balanced conditions in any agreement. Both sides entered the talks with firm positions, but also with an understanding that continued hostility could be costly and unpredictable. As discussions began, Pakistan's mediators worked carefully to reduce tension and guide both sides toward constructive dialogue. The early phase of talks focused on establishing trust and identifying common ground. However, as negotiations progressed, it became clear that deep differences remained. Despite this, both delegations continued discussions for nearly 21 hours, reflecting the seriousness of the effort and the pressure to find a solution. Throughout this process, the world remained closely engaged. International observers repeatedly emphasized the importance of these talks, describing them as one of the most significant diplomatic moments of the year. Many nations quietly expressed hope that Islamabad could succeed where previous negotiations had stalled. Global markets also responded cautiously, as any breakthrough or failure could influence energy prices and geopolitical stability. This interconnectedness of diplomacy and economics contributed to the global urgency surrounding the talks. Pakistan's role received widespread appreciation during this period. Diplomatic analysts and international commentators acknowledged Pakistan's effort in bringing both sides to the table at a critical moment. Hosting such high-level talks required not only logistical coordination, but also diplomatic trust from both Washington and Tehran. Pakistan's ability to facilitate this meeting was seen as a reflection of its unique position in international diplomacy. Many described it as a rare example of successful mediation in a highly polarized global environment. As the talks continued into the night and extended into the next day, anticipation grew even stronger. Reports suggested that while progress was slow, dialogue remained active. Negotiators exchanged proposals, revised conditions, and attempted to narrow differences. Yet the complexity of issues, including ceasefire arrangements, nuclear concerns, and regional security, made agreement extremely difficult. By the time the negotiations reached approximately 21 hours, the atmosphere had shifted from cautious optimism to growing concern.
Despite intense effort from mediators, fundamental disagreements remained unresolved. The United States maintained that stricter conditions were necessary for long-term stability, while Iran viewed several of these conditions as unacceptable. The gap between positions proved too wide to bridge in this round of talks. Eventually, the negotiations concluded without a final agreement. The announcement was met with disappointment across international circles. Many global observers had hoped that Islamabad would mark a breakthrough moment. Instead, both sides confirmed that while discussions were serious and extensive, key differences remained unresolved. The ceasefire remained fragile, and no permanent framework had been achieved. Despite the lack of a final deal, Pakistan's role was widely praised. International commentary highlighted that bringing both sides into direct contact for 21 hours of continuous dialogue was itself a significant achievement. Pakistan was credited for creating the diplomatic space where such discussions could occur peacefully. Even in failure, the effort was viewed as meaningful because it demonstrated that dialogue between the United States and Iran was still possible. Around the world, reactions were mixed but deeply engaged. Many countries expressed disappointment that no agreement had been reached, while also acknowledging the difficulty of the issues involved. There was a shared understanding that even unsuccessful talks can lay the groundwork for future negotiations. Some analysts suggested that the Islamabad meeting might serve as a reference point for future diplomatic efforts. At the same time, concerns remained. Without a formal agreement, the ceasefire continued to rest on uncertain ground. Observers warned that any misunderstanding or political shift could renew tensions. This uncertainty kept global attention focused on future developments, as the consequences of renewed conflict could be far-reaching. Economic implications were also discussed widely. Oil markets remained sensitive to the outcome, as instability in the region often affects global energy supply and pricing. A breakdown in diplomacy could increase volatility, while progress in future talks could bring stability and predictability to markets. This interconnectedness of diplomacy and economics contributed to the global urgency surrounding the talks. In the end, the Islamabad negotiations became a moment of both hope and limitation. They demonstrated that even deeply divided nations could still engage in dialogue, but also revealed how difficult meaningful agreement can be. The world had watched closely, hoping for a breakthrough, and while that breakthrough did not come, the effort itself was not forgotten. Pakistan's diplomatic role remained a central point of discussion. By hosting the talks, facilitating communication, and maintaining neutrality, Pakistan positioned itself as an active contributor to global diplomacy. This effort was widely acknowledged as a positive step in international engagement. In the midst of the diplomatic tension, an additional layer of attention came when J.D. Vance addressed the media in Islamabad during the ongoing discussions. Speaking cautiously, he described the talks as serious, structured, and difficult, emphasizing that while progress had been made in understanding each other's positions, major gaps still remained. He highlighted that the United States had come with clear expectations regarding regional stability and long-term security frameworks, but also acknowledged that negotiations with Iran required time, patience, and compromise. His remarks reflected both cautious optimism and underlying frustration, signaling to the world that although dialogue was active, a breakthrough was still not within reach. International media closely analyzed his statement, interpreting it as a sign that the negotiations were continuing but under significant pressure. As delegations left Islamabad, the city returned to its normal rhythm, but the significance of what had taken place lingered. For nearly a full day, Islamabad stood at the center of global attention, a place where two rivals met, debated, disagreed, and ultimately failed to reach agreement. The story did not end with peace, but it did not end with collapse either. It ended in uncertainty, and in diplomacy, sometimes that uncertainty becomes the starting point for future progress. The world, still watching closely, now waits to see whether the next round of talks will bring resolution or continued deadlock.